Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Caligowan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. Except for in the month of April, which is the month where we met, where we talk about movies after the first date. It's after the first date month. And this time I was made to watch Compliance.
Yes. And I'm so sorry. Well, I'm not actually sorry, but I know I told you last week it was kind of a bummer. And was it actually?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a happy story, but I think it is fascinating. And I think it honestly needs to be required viewing for anybody who's going to go out in the world and interact with anyone who holds authority over them or thinks they hold authority over them, because there's so many. It's like a litmus test for, do you knuckle under to authority? Do you stand up? How do you do it? Which is, not an irrelevant subject in today's climate. But let's describe what happens. So I would say the two main characters are Becky, who's played by Dreama Walker, who's been in a bunch of sitcoms. And Sandra, who's played by Ann Dowd, who's always amazing. Sandra is the manager of a fast food restaurant, Chickwich, which I think sells a lot of burgers. I saw them prepping, which is you never expect that. I would think like Chick-fil-A down here sells only chicken, but Chickwich apparently sells beef
burgers?
too.
I didn't see that.
I thought I saw burgers, but
I didn't see burgers.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
I don't know.
And Becky is an employee there, and right from the beginning, they established this tension because Sandra is probably in her late 40s, 50s, and is not cool. And, just her younger employees laugh at her behind her back because that's what you do when you're 19 and you're working fast food and your boss is taking fast food business way too seriously. And Sandra knows that her younger employees don't super respect her, and it hurts her a little bit. And so there's this sort of tension from the beginning, which I thought was really well displayed. So it's a regular day, and Sandra gets a call from someone who says he's a cop, and they know that Becky stole something, and they need Sandra to keep Becky in the office in a secure place until someone can get there and deal with her. And over the course of the next, I don't know, it's probably 2 or 3 hours, I think, he convinces Sandra and a couple of other people to do more and more invasive things to Becky, including have her take her clothes off so they can search her clothes and her body. And they just keep her naked. They take her clothes away. At one point, it's Friday night and the restaurant's busy. And Sandra's like, I don't have any more people to do this. And he says, well, is there a man in your life that you could bring in to do this? And she brings in her fiance, who is even more easily manipulated. And the caller talks him into spanking Becky and then having Becky perform oral sex on him. And it all comes to a head when two things happen. One more employee comes in he's like coming in late to do something. And Sandra says, hey, can you watch Becky? And he has a moral compass and is like, absolutely not. I'm a 60-year-old man. I don't need to be alone in a room with a woman who's naked. This is bullshit. I'm leaving. And also, so the whole time the caller has been telling Sandra, I have your regional manager on the other line. So she then thinks that her boss knows about it. Well, she finally gets a call from him, reaches him on the phone, something. And the guy's like, no, I don't know anything about a theft. I've been sick. I haven't talked to anybody.
Yeah, Harold's reaction clues her into call.
Yeah. Right. Because, Sandra doesn't know about the things that have been going on when she was out of the room. And then the aftermath kind of wraps up really quickly, but basically Sandra is fired from her job, breaks up with her fiance. Becky files civil suit. The caller is arrested. It turns out that he's a telemarketer, which is why he got so good at manipulating people on the phone. And it closes with an interview that Sandra is doing with a journalist, where she says that she thinks that she was a victim too, and she was just doing what she was told. And I think anybody would. So not a very cheerful view of society, but not inaccurate, I think, either. So I have a lot of thoughts about this, but before we get into all that stuff, now I've been telling you about this, I think, for a couple years, and we're finally getting to watch it. So I can't remember what I told you about it or not. Had I told you anything about it before we sat down to watch?
You mentioned it, but I don't think you told me any details.
Okay. So what's your reaction?
It's stupid. I don't mean the movie is stupid. So this is the problem with stuff like this, right? I have spent the last 17 years working in a job that makes me take anti-social engineering training every single year. And I started this role, or started with this company on the phones in a support role with access to people's billing information and all the sort of stuff. So was given extensive training on phishing and social engineering and how all of that stuff works over the phone. So I am inoculated against this. Not to say that I couldn't fall for something, but what I'm saying is the very basics of the anti-social engineering training would have stopped this at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to watch it and not roll my eyes the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
But after about the first, 10 minutes of the interactions, I was like, okay, I just have to turn that part of my brain off.
Yeah.
These are people working at a fast food restaurant. They've never had phishing or social engineering training.
Yeah. And this was made 13 years ago.
Yes.
So,
well, again, 17 years ago, I was given extensive anti-social engineering training.
Okay.
But yeah, so once I was able to quiet those voices, those angry voices, and watch it more objectively, like I could enjoy it for what it is and see the lesson that's to be learned there, and how the people get swept up in it, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera. So yeah, I mean, that's, in the end, it's I would give it a, I was give it a, like, we don't do ratings on this, but I would give it a, sure, like, yes.
Well,
to the average person, it's definitely worth watching for the, for that little bit of.
Well, okay, couple things. So yes, there were several points early in the conversation where I was like, okay, you need to get clarification, because that is such a vague ass thing to say. Like, this is like tarot card readers. I see someone with an initial C.
Well, yeah. So he's doing a lot of cold reading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there were a lot of things where I was like, if you're dumb if you don't question this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we know that there are a lot of people out there, even today, who are very trusting. And when someone calls and says that they're a cop or, something else where it's in a position of authority, they just believe them, because why would anybody lie? So like, there are people out there who would fall for this today.
Oh, 100%. People fall for this all the time, and for these tactics, right? Like, some people have gotten this call, and I'm not going to do the accent. This is Jim calling from Windows.
Yeah.
Your machine is compromised. And when you go, no, it's not, they go, oh, believe me, sir, it is. And I'm calling from Windows. And if we can't resolve this issue, I will have to shut off your computer.
Yeah.
I will have to revoke access to Windows for you. And you will have to comply with me. And I need this information. And for some reason, the only way to fix this problem is with Google Play Store cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I need many of them scratched off and read to me over the phone now.
Yeah.
Like, people fall victim to that stuff all the time.
Yeah. Well, and the tactics are very carefully honed.
Yeah. And they are 100%. And he's shown not just to be a telemarketer, but he's selling like fraud protection.
Mm-hmm.
In an aggressive manner. So you can tell, that he's been taught all that stuff. And that's the funny thing. Like, we didn't really do sales in my job when we started. At a certain point, they added sales. So there was a little bit of that training, but I managed to kind of avoid it by leaving a customer facing role. But yeah, that is one thing that you don't. It's like in order to teach somebody how to fight hackers, you have to teach them how to hack. You know, so it's this thing of like, in order to teach someone how to be a good salesman, you have to teach them how to kind of be a little bit of a dishonest salesman, or you have to teach them these pressure tactics that aren't necessarily 100% above board, or you teach them basic tactics and they evolve them into these questionable pressure tactics. So so that was an interesting bit.
Well, the other thing, I think when we're sort of, if we're deciding how judgmental to be of these people, so this is based on a true story, which it says at the beginning of the film, but it doesn't tell you the whole story. And I didn't learn the whole story until a year or two ago. I was taking a class about sort of online culture, and one of the topics that we looked at was online scams. And mostly what we talked about was it's not catfishing, but it's when like you reel someone in through a romance and you get them to give you money and, you know, that kind of stuff. And so I had to write a paper for that, and, you know, and I ended up learning more about this. There's a documentary on Netflix about this too, about the background of what the real case here. So this was based on a string of, I think it was like 70 plus cases that happened in 2003 and 4. So even less digital knowledge about scams then.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, you know, I'm going to reserve judgment for all the people because, like, yes, you should have been suspicious early on, but it was 20 years ago. So, okay. In real life, the guy who did it, they figured out who he was and they arrested him. He was not a telemarketer. He had a fantasy of being a cop. Mm-hmm. He had like fake police badges in his house and security guard uniforms and all this stuff. And he was acquitted.
Interesting.
But after he was acquitted, there were no more of these scams. So, you know, but yeah, so he's just walking free. Like,
cool.
So,
I mean, not cool.
If you work in a fast food restaurant and someone calls you about an employee stealing, don't fall for it. But yeah, in the class when we were talking about scams, you think of, I always tend to think of a scammer as a one-off person who is trying to target me specifically, and that's not how it is at all. It's a farm, and they're working at scale, and like they know they have like a 2% success rate, so they're gonna cast a very wide net and work as fast as possible. And interestingly, people always joke about, you know, so like the Nigerian prince emails, which are almost a cliche at this point. I don't know if anyone actually gets them. But there'll be typos in them. Yeah. And interestingly, that turns out to be possibly on purpose. My feeling had been that it's to sort of weed out people who don't notice that kind of stuff, but it's also so you feel superior to the person. You're like, oh, this person doesn't know it's versus it's, so clearly they're dumb and I'm smarter than them and they're not going to fool me.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah. But so like all the tactic of scammers, which clearly this guy knows and you can see him.
Yeah, there's an element of, there's an element with those in particular. Well, English second language, clearly.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I'm convincing you of that by not understanding your idioms and your complex punctuation.
Yeah. And this caller doesn't do any of those things, but there's lots of the, you know, like he insists on being called sir. He keeps reminding, you know, like I'm, you know, this is a legal matter. This is a legal proceeding, you know, and like gets people on his side. Like, I need you to help me. I need, you know, blah, blah, blah. And like, it is fascinating, terrifying, but like I really, you kind of want to show it to everybody.
Yeah. It's social engineering 101, you know, like he knows, like, there's one character in particular who gives him trouble and he gets off of that guy immediately. Yeah. He knows that there's nothing to be gained here, and continuing to talk to this guy is only going to continue to breed suspicion. He makes Sandra as a mark right away. And she is like, you know, the movie clearly shows that she's primed to be one. Yeah. right away. He never really gets to talk to Marty that much. Though I think she would have been a problem for him too, probably.
I think, yeah, the movie sets it up that Sandra is kind of willing to believe the worst, maybe not the worst, but something bad about Becky.
Sure.
Because there's this undercurrent of disrespect, and Marty has a much better relationship with her.
Yeah.
But I think with her and a lot of the other employees who are hearing what's going on, there's this undercurrent of, I don't want to get messed up with cops.
Sure.
So I'm not going to interfere, because there's this idea of, if I interfere, I get sucked in and I get blamed for something.
Yeah.
So in real life, in this particular, because this is based on one particular of the real life cases, the Marty corollary just got transferred to a different store. She did not face any criminal penalties or anything like that. It was just the Sandra character and her fiance who did. And the Becky character ended up suing the chain and got, like $1 million or something like that, because, she had been assaulted, and
yeah, there's a certain duty for the employer to protect her when she's there. Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I thought was interesting too. So at some point, the caller tells Sandra that Becky needs to be strip searched, and somehow plants the idea that the corporate is on board with this, and they require, he says something like, well, they're going to require someone else to be in the room with you, blah, 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 blah.
She says that.
Okay. Yeah. So she is real quick to agree with everything that he's saying to her. And that was the crux of the suit.
Yes and no. The way it's depicted in the movie.
Yeah.
He is very, again, it's social engineering 101, because he is initially reluctant to have the second person. I don't want to get too caught up on the specifics of this, and but he is initially reluctant to have the second person, and then she mentions that he should ask Robbie, the manager that's on the that he claims is on the other line, and he's like, oh yeah, Robert, yes, of course, and then he goes away, and then when he comes back, we don't see him come back from that call, but she is then bringing Marty into the room. He is quick to adjust to everything that they bring up, and he's initially trying to steer things in the ways that he would rather have them go, but is also quick to react to the concerns and manages to turn it back around to oh, of course, yes, corporate would want this, So that was just something. The only reason I wanted to bring that up was to highlight that
his
one
adaptability,
of the one of the keys of social engineering like this is the flexibility of understanding. Okay, it's like testing out a piece of a board on a deck or a bridge and realizing that's not going to hold my weight. I got to come back from that.
Yeah.
And he's very good at that, and he's shown to be very good at that, which is an important skill to have in that particular field.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why Sandra would think that a strip search is even remotely acceptable. And actually, that was one of the crux of the suit in real life, is that it was a McDonald's. McDonald's is like, we don't authorize strip searches.
Yeah, why never would be
you?
A thing,
why would you think we would? So yeah, Sandra's an odd character, and
yes.
Ann Dowd is always excellent.
Yeah.
I know her most recently from she plays Aunt Lydia in The Handmaid's Tale, who is actually sort of similar to Sandra. She inflicts a lot of the violence on the handmaids, and if you haven't seen it, essentially it's young women put into sexual servitude. She doesn't have any of the power, or very little of the power, and she has to be subservient to people above her, but she's the one who gets to do the whippings and the other things. So now that I think of it, there's very similar.
Yeah. Do you know where I know her from?
Where?
Hereditary.
Oh, everybody's in Hereditary. I'm still not watching it.
She plays a character that is manipulative. So she actually gets to be the manipulator in Hereditary.
Oh God. Well, yeah. And
she gets to have some power.
She's very I love the universe of character actors who they rarely star in things, even though there's this in The Handmaid, so she does star in things, but once you realize how good they are, all they have to do is be in a movie for 10 minutes and you're like, oh my God.
Oh yeah,
made it.
It takes one or two roles,
Yeah.
And you do see that more and more. The guy David, what's his name, who's in the movie with the talk show in the 70s with the demon. What is his name? Anyway, yeah, he's the kind of guy. He's been visible in movies for the last 10 or 15 years, and then like anytime he's in a movie, you're like, oh yeah, it's going to be good. And then he's occasionally you get these smaller films that need an actor, and you get a J.K. Simmons, or you get this guy, that guy, or you get an Ann Dowd.
Yeah,
you get somebody like that who can carry the role, but it's not going to break the bank.
Yeah, well, and I think oftentimes those character actors, when they get a major role, they almost are more interesting than a quote movie star would be. Like if you put, I don't know, Julianne Moore in this, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting because character actors don't have the glamour of movie stars, and so the tension that's there between Sandra and her younger, cooler employees wouldn't exist, and it's just not that it would be bad, it just wouldn't be the same. So
yeah, I mean it's for real.
So I am curious. So at the interview at the end, the journalist says to Sandra something like, do you consider yourself a victim too? And she says yes, and sort of doubles down like, I think anybody would follow orders, blah blah blah, which like I said is relevant today. Also calls to mind the Nazis and the Nuremberg trials, who they also were just following orders. That I think that had to have been a harder thing to say no to, because you're more entrenched in this structure.
Sure.
This is just a one-time thing. So I don't know how somebody doesn't say, what police department did you say you're from? Oh yeah, no,
because he literally says from the police department. Yeah. Like and just for all the people listening who need some social engineering training, this is the thing. When someone calls you and they have your name and they ask if you're still living at your same residence, and you say yes, and then they ask you what address that is, you don't tell them that, because they should have that information.
Yes.
You never volunteer information, and
to someone who calls you.
Yes, and you always ask for clarification. I'm Detective Daniels from the police department. Which police department are you with? Can I have your badge number?
What's your first name?
Okay, I will call back and ask to be transferred to you. What's your extension?
Yeah. Oh, you have my regional manager on the other line. Can you patch us in so all three of us can talk?
Please patch him in. Because the information that he has, like regional manager, that's just a thing you can find.
Yeah.
Like you can just find that if you.
Yeah, he does know that guy's name, but that's going to be on their website.
Right. It's on a website. It's on business documents. It's on any number of things that are publicly accessible, and that's the thing, right? If someone's calling you phishing, they have some information. What you want to see if they have is information that they couldn't get with a simple Google search. But yeah, always question, and it doesn't matter. So the moment that someone goes hard when you ask a simple question, that's it. You're done.
Yes.
When you say, well, what's your badge number? And they resist. Or which police department are you with? And they resist. Or you say, okay, I'm going to call the front desk and I'm going to ask to be transferred to you. And they resist that. That's it. That is a bad sign. There should be nothing preventing me from verifying your identity.
Yeah.
You should be volunteering as much information as I'm asking for that I can, and you should not fear me verifying that information. Okay, Jeff Daniels, weird that you have the same actor name as that actor. I'm going to call the police department, which is a half mile away, and I'm going to ask them to verify your identity.
And they're doing all this like, well, the alternative is to bring her down to jail, and she could, this is just easier for you to do it and
come and get her.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to say, like, so the story is that a woman was at the register ordering food and paying, and Becky reached into her purse and took out money. And I have that on surveillance. Like, what's surveillance?
Yeah. What's surveillance?
The restaurant surveillance? Because let me check, but also I wanted to say, how much money is this?
Yes.
Like we're probably like less than $100.
Yeah.
You're not going through all this for
this is.
So I would say, come and get her.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like, this is not a thing that you put someone in lockup for.
But really, like, and I imagine that this was the case in every one of these that didn't get hung up on. He found a mark. And that's the thing. Like, when you find a mark, you can go pretty far. Like, you can, there was a minor identity theft thing with me, and I'm kind of convinced that there was some social engineering used in that, not against me, but against bank employees to get additional access, because the level of access that they got wasn't something they should be able to get with the initial piece of information that they stole about my identity. So, it is the kind of thing where you really have to push back on it, and in these, especially employees at banks and stuff, they're taught to push back against this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tricky thing. And like I said, I'll say again for the third or fourth time, like, this is a 101 on how to do this.
Yeah. Well, yes, I think that, so you say employees at banks are taught to push back on this.
Yeah.
Employees at fast food restaurants, not so much.
Right,
and
exactly.
almost all these were fast food chains. I think one of them was at an Applebee's, so not that different. In a couple of cases, horrifyingly, it was people who were customers in the restaurant who were roped in. I don't know how they, got them tagged with theft. I don't get that. But I was just looking at the Wikipedia page of all the cases. In one case, it was a teenager eating in the restaurant with her friends, and she was visiting the town. She was on spring break, and she gets pulled in. Like, what the actual fuck?
Yeah.
Like, and also, like, she's 17. I'm sorry.
Immediately,
you're going to have to talk to her parents. Like in this one, they specified that Becky was 19. So that's different. But, it's horrifying.
For sure. And it's just, and it's the kind of thing, like, when you get, so I can think of one point where I almost got, it was with a parking scam. I was going to, a thing, and I had never been there before, and I was headed towards what looked like the parking area, and there was a couple of guys that flagged me down and were like, "Hey, it's $10 to park," and I was like, "Okay, well, I don't have. All I have is a credit card. I don't have $10." And I knew, like, there was free parking nearby, and I was about to say, like, I'm just going to street park nearby, and they were like, "Oh, you're fine, dude. Go ahead." And I went, and, like, as soon as I got past that, I was like, oh, those guys were trying to scam me. And, like, my thing wasn't going to be like, here's my credit card. My thing was going to be, oh, I'm just not going to use your parking. I'm going to go street park.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it was a plausible situation. Everything was, seemed, I'm not going to say above board, but it seemed believable enough. Yeah. And then just thinking about it a moment later was like, oh, that was such a scam. And I'm sure everybody involved in this, the moment that they analyzed any of it, were like, oh, that was so clearly a scam. Like, so super clearly a scam.
Yeah. And to his credit, the Van character, so as soon as he's, received this blowjob, he kind of has a crisis of conscience and gets the hell out of there.
Sure.
And calls a friend and is like, I think I did something really bad. Like, yeah, you think?
Yeah.
You should have realized that a good 30, 45 minutes ago. But yes, as soon as you get out of the, the fever dream of it, like, it's very clear.
Yeah, it's very clear that
what is wrong.
Yeah, and it's. I think everybody wants to believe that they would be Harold.
Yeah.
And so that's why most people are easy to turn into a mark.
Yeah.
Because everybody believes that they are unscammable.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you probably aren't unscammable.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what is it about Harold that made him harder to fool? I suspect that part of it is he came into this cold. So Van is getting the story from Sandra, and she very quickly, I noticed, So the cop is the caller. I shouldn't call him a cop. Is saying things like, "Oh, we know that Becky stole this." Well, at that point, it's all alleged. She hasn't been
Yeah.
convicted, but
Yeah.
Sandra jumps on that story too. Becky stole, and
Yeah.
then he weaves in this thing about there's something with her brother and drugs. And so it's Becky stole, and she's involved in drug. And Sandra takes it hook, line, and sinker.
Yes, and that's the information that he gets from her. Again, just to highlight the 101, he
Right.
gets the brother maybe in trouble with the law information from her,
Yeah.
and then uses it to make his story more convincing to others, which is
what I think is because he says something like, "Do you have any older siblings who've been in trouble with the law?" And she says, "My brother."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, your brother's blah 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 blah." And
yes,
she's like, "No,
like, he's not actually, he's not a troublemaker.
No, So yeah, but so Sandra feeds all this stuff to Van, so he's primed going in, and everybody else who's in the restaurant has been hearing a little bit about this. The only one who really goes in there is Kevin, who's Becky's friend and who's about the same age, and also to his credit, he's like, "No, I'm not going to ask her to take off the apron and do that. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm leaving." But that's all he does. He has a phone with him, and he is texting someone to find out about her brother.
Right, and he's doing the absolute least he can do, while still, like his suspicions are warranted, and he's doing some stuff to try to get the information. But again, he's like 19.
Yeah.
He's, so, and that's what these things depend on, right? Like you can say on the one hand, Harold is like in his 60s and he is just world weary. Like he's been there, done that. And he is just like, no.
Yeah.
This makes zero sense. This isn't anything a cop would ask anybody to do. Like this is just not how this happens.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure what it is that makes him snap like that. Was it just luck, or I don't know. I think the caller does some interesting things with Van. I don't think that. The phrase that you hear is henpecked husband. I don't think that's what Van is, but the caller I think makes him feel that way. He makes some joke about, Sandra's gonna have you by the short hairs. You're never gonna have any freedom. Blah blah blah. Yeah. And so there's this feeling of like, I can do this thing that is, subversive. That's against what she would want me to do, or I have power over this young teenager. He's just like, "Oh, I want you to spank her and make her understand that she disobeyed and she can't, blah blah blah." And it's
Well, so and the thing is, again, from the standpoint of manipulation, and this is one of those things again where it's not like I do this, but in order to teach somebody to combat this, you have to teach them how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that he understands, because people like to think they're unique.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got news for you. Mm-hmm. You're not unique.
As Tyler Durden said, you are not a special and unique snowflake.
There are like 5 archetypes of people in this world, maybe 6, and you are one of them. You are hard stuck as one of them. And the moment that he understands Sandra's archetype, he understands the man that Sandra would be able to get and his archetype. Mm-hmm. Like once you start to really study people, like people go together. Like they, they talk about all this stuff. Like, oh, there's a
lid for every pot.
A lid for every pot. There's a puzzle piece that fits you. Fits your, But it 100% is true. Like there is like a lot of these other people aren't even lids. Like you're never, so they're never going to fit on top.
Yeah,
because they aren't lids in the first place. They're also pots, and guess what? Pots don't fit on other pots. And that
sounds like the Trump administration would love to borrow that analogy. But.
So like he understands that she's a pot, and therefore there's a lid to go with him, and a lid is a specific type of person. That would be with this pot, and so he knows immediately how to manipulate Van and what he needs. And what he can get away with. Yeah. And just like he immediately knows Kevin is not the guy to take down this long road. He immediately knows that Van is just from the moment that Sandra agrees to have him come in.
Yeah.
And that he does that, that he listens to her.
Yeah. That's like, don't. Oh yeah. yeah, I keep going back to at the end, Sandra says she's a victim. And I'm like, you were manipulated.
Yeah.
But you're a fool is what
Right.
you are.
She's
I am sorry that you got swept up in this, but you had the power to stop it and you didn't.
Yes, she is a victim in the loosest sense.
Yeah.
And then she is complicit in that she failed at every responsibility that she had.
Yes.
After that. Like, yeah, like she gets 10 seconds of sympathy from me. And then after that, it's done.
But I don't know though. Like she says at the beginning, like they're short somebody and they're having this stress with, the freezer was left open and they're short on supplies. And
it's no mistake that he's calling on a Friday.
Well,
like it's a 101. Like this is what you do. And this is one of the things that they taught us in our anti-social engineering and phishing stuff is that they are going to call you when the queue is full. Mm-hmm. They know when the bad time is to call. That's why they call it the bad time.
Well, that honestly seems like one of the most unrealistic parts of the movie is that there's a dinner rush at a fast food restaurant.
Oh no, not at all. Like
I don't know.
You see like you never experienced this, but one of the things that you did growing up in a small town near a moderately sized town. So the closest thing that you could call a city near us when growing up was High Point. High Point, North Carolina. You may know it for its furniture empire once upon a time. And so what kids in the surrounding area did in the quote unquote suburbs of High Point, what you did was you drove your car to High Point and you drove up and down the main street. And you cruised.
Cruising. Oh yeah.
And when you were done cruising, you stopped at the Hardee's, you stopped at the McDonald's, you stopped at the Miss Winners, you stopped at the Bojangles, and you just hung out. Like you didn't, if you weren't planning to cruise, you didn't go to you didn't go to the north end of Main Street.
Yeah.
In High Point on a Friday night. You just didn't because it was packed. You could not get, you wouldn't want to be in line at the cookout. You wouldn't want to be trying to get a seat at the IHOP. None of that stuff. So, if we're talking about just sort of the nondescript small town Midwest, wherever we are.
Which this is for sure.
Like there ain't in circa 2003, there ain't a lot to do.
Well, yeah.
The mall is probably dead by then.
Yeah.
By 2003.
I think I may have a post-COVID view of fast food restaurants, which lately most of them are turning into you order at a kiosk.
Oh, yeah.
And, they're not very welcoming. And they certainly, they show scenes in the restaurant, tons of people eating and, it's packed and, and I don't, not that I'm at fast food restaurants for dinner very often, but it just doesn't. We're going to call that a post-COVID view that I have.
Well, yeah. Newsflash, modern fast food restaurants don't want you to eat inside.
Yeah.
Like there is a reason that they don't clean up very often or anything. Like they would love it if you did not come inside.
Yes. When they give you the food in a to-go bag, that's not because they ran out of trays.
I was for here.
You
were what?
I said for, well, we don't care. We don't, But so there's this imperfect. Sandra's been having a very bad day, and so she's and she knows that. So the very first scene is the supply truck is restocking some of the stuff that was spoiled when the freezer was left open, and he's pissed at her, and so she's trying in some way to make up for that and like appease some of her higher ups. So just to mention that her boss is on the other line like she feels like she's pleasing him by pleasing this cop, which again, maybe patch him in so you can all have this conversation, but she's not going to question it because it's
and like you were saying before, a guy like this, he's doing volume, right? Like if she goes, oh, well, let me, I'm going to call him on the other line and speak to him, that's an immediate hang up.
Yeah. Because
we gotta go.
Well, because it had been a while since I saw this and I almost expected him to have another call going.
Yeah.
On, like one phone in your right ear, one phone in your left ear. And, didn't, but he's just sort of, this is how he gets his rocks off for this evening. And then
it's weird too. Cause like, he's not even jerking off. right? He's not doing anything. Like he's not where is the perverted thing? Like he's
Well-
not even like, cutting his arm or
Well,
like
he's clearly enjoying
Oh, yeah.
the discomfort that he's causing in people, because at first you only hear his voice, and then you see like, his
the
shoulder,
slow reveal.
and then you see his face. And I can't remember. I mean, like, you probably figured out from the beginning, like, this is not a real cop.
Yeah, just because of the movie.
Well,
Like,
yes.
I was like,
But-
I'm just immediately like, okay, like the only twist I was maybe expecting, and for a second I thought I was going to get it, was that like he was going to leave his house and actually be a cop.
Yeah.
Like, because there's the point where the cop comes out and gets in a car and it's a different cop. But for
Yeah,
a second I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, wait, is that the guy? Like, is this the reveal that I was suspecting?
Where-
That
yeah.
like he actually is a cop?
Yeah. Well, and because you can't really, and yeah, eventually you see the backdrop, and it turns out it's just a home office in his house.
Yeah.
But, I lost where I was going. I totally lost
That
my.
he's not. The twist was he's going to be a cop.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. You see his face.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, describe her body. How big are her nipples?
Yeah, like
and
the
he's
moment he
given
says something like that.
yeah,
like,
but he's given these grins when the people on
Oh,
the
yeah.
phone are like, oh, I don't know if I really, and he's like, yeah, he's really enjoying their discomfort.
Yeah, he's definitely a sociopath or
Yes.
something like he's definitely detached from his empathy and that sort of
Mhm.
stuff, like for sure. And he's getting a kick out of the power. It's the reason he makes everybody call him sir or officer or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the reason that he gets flustered when people push back, like when Kevin pushes back, he gets a bit flustered, and
Yeah.
when obviously when Harold pushes back.
Yeah. Interestingly, so this set of real incidents has been used in a lot of other media. Unsurprisingly, it was an SVU episode,
yes.
and Robin Williams played the caller.
I didn't remember that he was the caller.
And in that one, his name was Officer Milgram. And does that name ring a bell?
No.
Milgram Stanley, I think, was a psychology researcher who did, I think it's the one where there's a person and then they're told there's a person in the other room and you need to administer electric shocks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And you hear the person saying, please, God, make it stop. Blah, 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 and they keep doing it. In reality, there's no one there. And it's just an actor just screaming for effect. But people kept it going long past what anything that was reasonable, or just because they were told to, you know. So Milgram is the shorthand for people's refusal to disobey authority. So that was I see what you did there, SUV. Okay.
Yeah.
SVU. Jeez. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all very depressing.
Yeah.
But I think it is the kind of thing where you have to arm people with knowledge that it can happen. And the first time I saw this, I was like, I need to show this to every teenage girl I know.
Oh, for sure.
Because I think they are the ones who are most vulnerable to this.
Yeah, and the thing is, he doesn't even. So he is shown to be like drinking from a container for this restaurant. Then maybe he went there, but he just says you have a young blonde there.
Yeah.
And Sandra fills in the rest.
It's the equivalent of I'm someone with a C initial, an older woman, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's my Aunt Claire. Yeah. Yes, totally. That's who I meant.
Like the name that's coming to me is Ethel. But this would be a grandmother, maybe a great grandmother, Ethel.
Do you mean my great aunt Evelyn? Oh, yes, that's it.
Or like who's not going to have, maybe it's not you, maybe it's someone you know, like, oh yeah, I know. Oh, my cousin's grandmother was Ethel. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like you just, it's just like if you were going to say they're a kid, maybe no more than 20 years old, named Brantley, or a Braden Brantley, maybe
is there a
25?
Michaela?
Yeah, Michaela, geologist, maybe.
Yeah,
from Michaela.
It's I've always thought. I don't think that I could commit to the bit, but I would love to go to a psychic or a medium or a tarot card reader and just make shit up.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I have a brother who was hiking Mount Everest, and he's lost up there, and his name is Vincent, and can you find him? And she'd be like,
no, that's a
But then I couldn't make it a brother because I actually have a brother. I feel like that would be dooming him. Like I have a sister, whose name is Veronica. That's it.
Yeah, but also like that's definitely a movie.
Yeah,
not that specific, like that specifically. Yeah, but the thing that pops into my head is that the person is lying. Has fabricated a story, and the psychic keeps getting the fabricated story right.
Yeah.
And then, finally the moment is like, well, I was getting it right because I can actually read your mind. Like you were thinking about your fake brothers, and so I could sense your fake brother. And then, and then the person's real brother is in danger.
Yeah.
Like you said, dooming your brother.
Or like, you didn't know, but you actually do have a sister named Veronica.
You actually do have a half sister.
Father never told you. And, but
have fun with it.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I want to show this to everybody, teen girls in particular, but like, see right here, she should have said, "Oh, what police department?"
Yeah.
See right here, she should have said,
just advocate for yourself. You're an adult. Walk out at the moment that they say we need to hold you here and strip search you. You say no, you don't, and you leave.
Yeah, and advocate for your employees too. Like that's such bullshit. Like this is at most $100. Like no, you're not. He keeps going. We need to find the money. Like no, you don't.
Yeah, like it's Ocean's 11, like it's duffel bags of cash.
Like it's like this is a bunch of certified checks. Like no,
Well, and the thing is, if she had questioned the amount of money, he would have said something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it was only $100, but she also stole a cashier's check for $10,000.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, he's.
Yeah,
I mean, he's good at improvising.
Yes, and we know he's done it a lot.
Yeah, well, and which is so many people. You think, a skill like that, like you can improvise or you can, subtly manipulate people or whatever. You're like, if you could just use your skills for good, the world would be so much better off. But instead, you do this shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody, basically, the thing that my parents told me when I was little is if somebody calls you, don't give them any information.
Yes.
If you call them, then you're probably safe. Now, these days, there's deep faking and various other things.
Yeah,
so
there's a whole new set of challenges out there for
spoofing the number they call it.
You can spoof. You can do all kinds of stuff.
But definitely, if somebody calls you and says, "I'm from the blah 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 blah," no, you're not.
Yeah.
No, I'm not giving you my social security number.
Yes.
No, that's not happening. Yeah. Trust no one.
For sure. Yeah,
so,
and just every job needs anti social engineering and phishing and just general security training on this sort of stuff.
Even if you think you don't, if you interact with the public in any way, shape, or form, you do.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, should people see this, even though it's really depressing? Like,
sure.
Yeah, I think it's valuable.
I think it. I mean, it is, and there's a lot more like deep musing we could do on it. There's a much bigger breakdown you could do of like the different moments of, like what was the motivation here of him saying this and them believing this, or like look at how masterfully he handled this objection.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that there is a, my go-to thing is there's an hour-long video on YouTube about this. Video essay on YouTube about this movie, I'm sure.
Well, and it's interesting, just cinematography, and there's not much of a score, but it's this sort of harsh, discordant cello music, and there's lots of close-ups of like the piles of slush in the parking lot, and there's a puddle with like all the people threw their cups in their bags,
a lot of B-roll, like
it all looks very bleak.
Who was the AD on this? Like somebody had a field day.
Yeah, but it's just it's all very moody, and like if you've been in a small town, like a really really small town, you know what this place looks like, and it's so not a happy movie, but an important one, I think. So
sure.
Well, folks, we would love to know what you think about this movie. If you found it uplifting, then we know we don't.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yes. you can get in touch with us a couple different ways. You can send us an email. Our address is ysmypodcast, ysmy for you show me yours, at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, same handle. DM us, or you can look at our main page and find links to all of our latest episodes. Typically, we have new episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, you'll find a new episode, except for the month of April when we do after the first date month, and we have episodes every week. So next time, Dave will be hosting. And what are we watching next time, Dave?
The most depressing movie I can think of. No, I'm gonna liven it up.
Yeah, we've had 2 bummers, so
I'm gonna liven it up with. I left it for a game time decision. I have a couple. We'll do Kingsman.
Okay.
A fun action comedy with at least one actor that I know you really like.
You're thinking of Colin Firth?
No.
Taron Egerton?
No.
Oh, Mark Strong. I forgot.
Strong.
Yes, he's
Mark Strong is in this movie.
Somehow, you guys, I have a crush on olive-skinned bald men.
Yes.
So Mark Strong and Stanley Tucci. And for a while, I thought that Ari Fleischer, the press secretary during the Bush administration, was sort of attractive. I'm not proud of that, but I did. I don't know. It was the 2000s. Things were crazy, but Mark Strong is kind of dreamy. So,
yes. So
thank you.
It's
what I like.
Yeah, it's a fun action movie, and it's Samuel L. Jackson is great in it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it'll just be a fun way to end the month.
Good. Okay. Well, we will see you next time with Kingsman and Mark Strong, my movie boyfriend. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.